The refrain they have shouted at police across America, ringing out again in Minneapolis. After the shooting dead of unarmed Daunte Wright by a white police officer. Key protesters were snatched, around 40 people arrested in all. Despite claims it was an accidental shooting and promises of justice from the mayor, people here are not prepared to let it go again.
All I want to know is why are you shooting me?
We're just tired, okay? We're sick and tired of it. We've had too many black people dying, too many black brothers, all right, especially in Minnesota. We're tired of it. That's why everybody is here, and you see it. We're sick and tired of it.
And are you going to stay here?
I'm going to stay here as far as I can, as much as I need to.
And will you be arrested?
If I need to, I will be. I'm fighting for something that's way more than me right now.
The curfew was supposed to start at 7 o'clock tonight, but for the last couple of hours, hundreds of protesters have been surrounding the police station, which is cut off by lines of officers. They have fired tear gas, and every so often they advance, pushing people back, trying to disperse them.
This isn't a lawful assembly. You need to disperse to the north and leave the area. You will be arrested. Do it now.
As this was going on, the authorities revealed the officer who shot Daunte Wright was Kim Potter. With 26 years' experience, she's a former local leader of the police union. Potter's body camera has revealed errors and questionable decisions. Why was Daunte Wright pulled over and surrounded by 3 officers for a minor infringement? Why was he handcuffed next to the open door of his car? How, when handguns and tasers are worn on opposite sides and feel and weigh very different, did an experienced officer get confused?
Oh, wow.
Yes! And most crucially, why was she shooting anything at a man who wasn't threatening anyone, but trying to get away, clearly afraid?
We're just upset that they accidentally killed someone. Okay. We're supposed to trust them? Yeah.
At the courthouse, the prosecution of Derek Chauvin for the murder of George Floyd last May rested after 38 witnesses, ending with the painful testimony of Mr. Floyd's brother, who shed new light on why the dying man had called out to his dead mother.
He loved her so dearly. And when we went to the funeral, it's just, George just sat there at the casket over and over again. He would just say, "Mama, Mama," over and over again. And I didn't know what to tell him because I was in pain too. We all were hurting.
The defense began examining George Floyd's history of taking opioid drugs, sowing more doubt on whether he really died because of the knee on the neck. There was some criminal damage last night, but relatively few protesters were involved.
Back up, back up, back up, back up.
Many are unconvinced by assurances of accountability from President Biden and the local mayor.
I want you to understand that I'm going to do absolutely everything in my power to make sure that justice is done.
It's been going on for too long, man. I feel like this is stop. They got to stop this.
What's been going on too long?
This whole racist stuff, white cop killing a black person, all of that.
Everybody just got to come together as one, you know?
With the Floyd and Wright families effectively united now by a campaigning lawyer and supportive protests, there will be a question of whether it places the jury under more pressure. There's no doubt that if racial justice protesters were on edge with the Floyd trial, the killing of Daunte Wright takes things to a new level. Well, the civil rights lawyer who represents the family of George Floyd is now also representing Daunte Wright's loved ones. Speaking alongside both families at a press conference a short time ago, Ben Crump said it was unbelievable that another police killing had taken place at the same time as the trial of the officer accused of murdering George Floyd.
It is just something I could not fathom that in Minneapolis, Minnesota, a suburb 10 miles from where the Chauvin trial regarding George Floyd
was taking place that a police officer would shoot and kill another unarmed black man. It's something that if you told me and I didn't see little Daunte's face and his grandmother crying, I wouldn't believe it.
Well, joining me now from New York is DeRay Mckesson, activist and co-founder of Campaign Zero, an organisation that seeks to end police violence in America. Can I just begin by asking you what your reaction is to what you're seeing here in Minnesota, these two deaths coming together in this way?
You know, in so many ways, this has been like deja vu. We've been here before. We have seen the killing on camera. We've seen the outrage. We've seen little solutions come from these things, right? You think about 2020, the police actually killed more people in 2020 than every year of data we have on record outside of 2018. And, you know, the police actually killed more people in suburbs than almost every other community combined. So this happening in Brooklyn Center, from the data perspective, actually is more representative of what's happening in the country. And the police have killed over 260 people this year. This is just the first case that's taken the national conversation.
When you look at the video, and it's clear that the officer is in shock at having shot, Mr. Wright, and the explanation that this was an accident, we've now had the resignation of the officer, the resignation of the police chief, and promises of justice from the mayor. Do you think these are reasons to be more hopeful in this case?
I mean, we'll see, right? You know, when we look at the convictions of police officers, the highest number of convictions ever in a given year has been 11. Since 2005, there have only been 5 officers ever convicted of murder. So, like, we'll see. But what's interesting about the video is that you have to remember that Kim Potter was a trainer of police. She'd been on the force half my life, right? So when you're like, did you make a mistake? I don't know if you made a mistake, right? And where was he going? I mean, he was sitting in the car. You literally could have just watched him in the car. He's not driving off. He has no weapon. Like, there was no urgency to use any weapon against him because the most dramatic thing he was even possibly going to do was sit in the car.
That is the real issue that people talk to you about on the streets here, about the whole approach, particularly to young black men, by police officers in a traffic stop. Why the need for the aggression? 3 officers out of the car, weapons close by, and handcuffed for hanging an air freshener from a rearview mirror.
Yeah, and this is why I'm always reminded that this is a choice. The police will say, well, it was wild, and they were resisting. It's like, you made a choice. In that moment, you chose to reach for a weapon, you chose a gun, and you chose the trigger. These were choices. They didn't just happen. They didn't pop out of thin air. Like, you made a series of choices that ended up with a young man. His life is gone now because you made choices. And the police always want to dilly-dally, like, oh, accident, you made a choice. And that choice resulted in murder.
But where do you think this is going? I mean, Joe Biden tweeted about his compassion for the Wright family. But even as I've been standing here, I can tell you there's been a truck flying Trump flags that's been driving past up and down, beeping its horn, sort of harassing the mourners here. This clearly threatens to go right into the divisions that have been plaguing America for so long.
Yeah, here's the thing. When we poll people around the country, people, every party, all age groups, they want change. That's the common denominator. They might disagree about how intense the change is, but nobody is like, this works. Like, no group, the majority of no group is like, what's going on today works. They're not saying that. They weren't saying it in June of last year, and they're not saying it today. So that is a good thing. I think that what we need to help people understand is that there's real possibility. So, like, we can do some immediate things, and we can do some things that aren't as immediate, but do get us beyond policing. Do you need somebody with a gun to stop somebody for an air freshener? No. Do you need to stop somebody for an air freshener at all? No, right? Like, the data is clear that the majority of what the police are called to do in the first place actually isn't about anything that resembles violence in the first place. And when we look at the 2020 data, we're reminded that just last year, almost 60% of the interactions that led to police killings were not even things remotely suspected of being violent. About 120 people were killed last year at traffic stops. And you're like, that is, in no way does that make sense.
There is a danger here, though, as well, isn't there? That, and the defence are already beginning to argue this, that this is having an effect on the trial of Derek Chauvin, that the jury are going to feel affected by what's going out on the streets. Does it concern you that this could end up leading to legal twists and turns, possible appeals in the future in terms of what's going on in the streets here?
If anything, it's a reminder that police violence is not an aberration, that this is actually just a part of the culture right now in a way that needs to be transformed. So when I think about like what the bearing might be, it might be actually a reminder to everybody in that courtroom that this happens far more often than people think, that like this is happening not only in Minneapolis, but in the surrounding suburbs, and that we actually have to do something about it, that the time is now to do something. So that is what I think could emerge from this. And like, you know, again, Derek Chauvin made a choice. Kim Potter made a choice. These choices led to people's lives being taken. Like, we have to reckon with that.
DeRay Mckesson, thank you very much indeed for joining us.